Hello everyone, welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh and thank you so much for joining us here today. Got a great one for you. As always, really appreciate you staying with us. Got a lot of stuff to get to, of course. Brett Kavanaugh appears to have lied under oath both this week and when he was being confirmed for his last post. We'll take a look at Sean Patrick Maloney and Zephyr Teachout's war of words and the Attorney General debate this past week. Susan Collins is now the proud owner of 3,000 coat hangers. White House staff has reportedly told the psychiatrist Trump was unraveling, and Trump is reportedly, predictably backstabbing Apple on tariffs. Is that good news or bad news? Who knows? It'll be interesting to see. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a lot of stuff for you today. So this is what we got. And, of course, today we start with one of probably the most important things going on in our society today, or at least in the news. One would think that honesty and integrity, Splinter starts a pretty good explanation here, would be probably the most basic requirements for a nominee to the country's highest court. By those standards, Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh wouldn't even be in the running, yet here we are. Honesty, it seems, isn't something Republican lawmakers are concerned about, and why would they be? They need only really one thing, and that is if they just like birth him out of a wall, or her, if they support certain legislation, such as ones that are beneficial towards the rich, beneficial for corporations, tax cuts for them or whatever. I mean, any pro-corporation, anti-environment, anti-abortion bill that comes through the courts, they have to just vote. They have just to support. Like, that's it. That's all they need to do. And even if they shot someone, they're a lock for the Supreme Court, which is like all the more disturbing. During confirmation hearings this week, Brett Kavanaugh, the President Trump's nominee, as I'm sure you know, when we've definitely covered some of the flares from this week, was evasive, combative, rambling, dodgy, and smarmy all at the same time with his answers to questions by Democratic senators attempting to dodge through an obstructive amount of missing documents marked committee confidential, and documents dumped on them at the last minute, etc. As we know, pretty much all they did was went to great and tremendous lengths to pretty much hide Brett Kavanaugh and his record from the country, which is very telling. So, as long as it's very telling that they can't just put up a guy who hasn't lied, who hasn't done things where they would need to hide his record from you. Like, why would there need to be, like, it just says so much about just, like, the conservatives these days. They can't even put someone up who can sail through this confirmation process. Like, this should be easy. They should be able to do this way better. Like, if they get at least a clean nominee, it just shows you the incompetence of this Trump administration versus 15 years ago with the George Bush administration. If they got the chance to support a new Supreme Court nominee, it'd be handpicked from whatever the Heritage Foundation, not the Federal Society. And he would probably be, the confirmation vote would be like a week ago. And he would be just getting in the Supreme Court now. Like, that is how much more common. And instead, they wouldn't have to do with all these things. Like, the Democrats, they should only have the policy. They should not have the, support. They should not have all this stuff where he perjures himself under oath. Like it just shows you how incredible and how incredibly stupid these people are, and they're just bad at their jobs. But still, it doesn't really matter because they're going to get into it anyway. So Mother Jones and other news outlets have identified at least 5 times Kavanaugh appeared to lie to Congress under oath this week, under oath, in his past confirmation hearings, and that's probably not even close to an exhaustive list. New York Times will explain this better. So this is an editorial board headline with a headline: Brett Kavanaugh can't be trusted. Seems pretty simple enough. The editorial says, now Kavanaugh's being rammed through his confirmation process with an unprecedented degree of secrecy and partisan maneuvering by Republican senators, who, despite their overflowing praise for his legal acumen and sterling credentials, appear terrified for American people to find out much of anything about him beyond his penchant for coaching girls basketball. Yeah, this is pretty much what they've been like all week of the hearings. Let me turn my senatorial committee mic on. Watch this. The Democrats don't have anything for Judge Kavanaugh. They are just lying, and they are awful, and they just like to pound the table. Everybody, yeah, that's pretty much what they've been sounding like there. As I could turn my committee mic off, it's too ASMR-y, if you know, because it sounds like something like ASMR in a way. It's like, don't vote for Judge Kavanaugh, or we will vote you out. He is awful. He is a liar, and he is not good for the Supreme Court. Yeah, I wanted to, I may just do my whole show in ASMR. It'd be very soothing. If you're ASMR affected, that is. But then just be like, why is this guy whispering? This is a little weird. So yeah, the article continues, but perhaps most concerning, Judge Kavanaugh seems to have trouble remembering certain important facts about his years of service to Republican administrations. More than once this week, he testified in a way that appeared directly to contradict evidence in the record. In one of those cases, Kavanaugh appeared to have lied about his handling of Democratic emails that were stolen by a GOP Senate aide by the name of Manuel Miranda in the 2000s, while Kavanaugh was under the employ of George W. Bush and his administration. So, former ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Lisa Graves, wrote in Slate that not only should Kavanaugh be not be seated on the Supreme Court, but he should also be impeached from the federal judiciary. Bam! You tell him, Lisa. Lise, you go, girl. I like that stuff. Yeah. Because here's what we got with Lisa. So this is what she says. During the hearings on this nomination to the D.C. Circuit a few months after the Miranda news broke, Kavanaugh actively hid his own involvement. He was literally sent the documents that this Senate employee by name, Senate employee, GOP Senate employee, Manuel Miranda, stole on this time period. So here's Kavanaugh saying he was sent. Keep in mind, he was sent these documents. Brett Kavanaugh was. He was sent them by Miranda, and this is what he said while he was testifying, trying to get on the court.
The documents that were taken here from the committee, and that you have the familiarity, Miranda documents, and you've indicated that you, in reviewing them, had no understanding or awareness that they had been taken, been stolen. Have you ever gone back now that you are aware of it and seen what decisions you may or might not have taken on the basis of documents that were illegally taken, to see whether you may have made some judgments or decision to reach certain conclusions now that you know that they were not properly taken? Have you ever thought, well, I ought to go back. I might have made some judgments or decisions when I was in the working for the president, and I ought to take a look at this, since you know that these documents now were taken?
Important premise in your question that I think is incorrect, which is I didn't know about the memos or see the memos that I think you're describing. So I think.
Oh, you never saw any of those?
No, Senator, that's correct. I don't know. I'm not aware of the memos. I never saw.
Oh, wait a minute. He was sent the memos. I see. And he saw them, so he's lying. Other areas where Kavanaugh lied, according to Mother Jones, including his involvement in nominating William Pryor, who's a rabid anti-abortionist, to the 11th Circuit, his involvement in a Bush-era NSA warrantless wiretapping program, his participation in discussions about so-called enemy combatants post-9/11, his role in the nomination of Charles Pickering, and, of course, his true beliefs about Roe v. Wade and whether it can and should be overturned by a conservative Supreme Court. So yeah, very disturbing stuff. The important thing to remember here is there are a lot of problems with Brett Kavanaugh, and if you see a Democrat who's not doing anything to support them or not sufficiently supporting him, vote him out. Put a progressive Democrat in. Why don't you? All right, so now we move now to local politics in the good state of New York. Because you gotta love New York. New York. That's what I wanted to do there. But anyway, So Sean Patrick Maloney is calling Zephyr Teachout unhinged there in the Attorney General's race, which is said by Democrats to be the most important legal job in the country for all the things that they have to do to resist President Donald Trump and so on and so forth. So during this New York Attorney General's debate, Sean Patrick Maloney called his fellow Democratic candidate Zephyr Teachout, the Intercept writes, for accurately describing his voting record. Maloney, with a congressperson from upstate New York, stood with banks on two critical occasions to roll back elements of Dodd-Frank financial reform, Teachout accurately noted. The exchange during which Maloney was booed by the audience was the latest of several instances where Maloney had claimed that African-American small bankers in his district were the primary beneficiaries of deregulatory policies he favored. In reality, it was, guess what? Large megabanks benefited by far more from both the votes that Teachout cited. So, yeah, Teachout, by the way, true progressive in the race, great candidate, challenged Andrew Cuomo, challenged John Faso, who is pretty awful. They're both pretty awful. Now Cynthia Nixon's trying to do the same thing there. But those larger mega banks and other financial industry players are supporting Maloney's campaign for Attorney General, a position which has sometimes been called the Sheriff of Wall Street because of jurisdiction. Earlier this week, Financial Times broke down how a significant chunk of Maloney's $1.8 million in fundraising comes from Wall Street lawyers and real estate developers. If that doesn't make you want to vote for him as a logical, sensible, reasonable person, I don't know what else does. Like, if that fact that he's lying about this situation, and he's like, that's all a load of nonsense. Oh, I hate this so much. But we're going to play the clip for you in a second. But pretty much the point is, like, no. Like, this, you're just making stuff up here. And Teachout, Sean Patrick Maloney, is right on point, as usual. Yeah, and the fact that, like, this, if you want to vote for this guy, I don't know what you're doing, because, like, this guy's not going to represent you. He's made it, how more clear can he possibly make it? All right, so yeah, here is my good buddy, Zephyr
Teachout. In the
Teachout.
financial sector, and oh yes, I am ready to be the next sheriff of Wall Street.
Yeah.
But I want to point out this is an area of genuine, real difference. I fought really hard for a section you may not know about, Section 716 of Dodd-Frank, which ensured that the people of this country would not have to bail out big banks for risky behavior. My opponent, Sean Patrick Maloney, was one of a handful of Democrats who voted with Republicans to get rid of that.
She's right about that, as we just discussed, and the fact is he's got a lot more to say about how possibly he's wrong about this. So let's see what he has to say on this.
My opponent was also, Sean Patrick Maloney, was also
You can hear him smarmy.
a Democrat who voted with a handful of Republicans in the recent Bank Lobbyist Act.
And by the way, this does not look good to people. This does not look good to people. They are not going to support you, especially in the Democratic base. Especially in the Democratic base, especially in the Democratic state of New York. If you are voting time and time again to support big banks, it may look good with the big banks who are funding your entire campaign, but it certainly does not look good with the people who are actually living in New York and who you're actually supposed to be representing and fighting for. You're supposed to be on their side of the law. So yeah. So, yeah, he also, back to what she was talking about, Section 716 of Dodd-Frank would have forced the riskiest derivatives trading to be conducted outside of big banks and others and in separately capitalized entities. But again, but this Bank Lobbyist Act, it decreased enhanced reporting requirements under Dodd-Frank and the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act. This is what the crapo bill, it is crap, but it's made by Mike Crapo, funny enough, of Iowa, Senator Mike Crapo. Section 104 of the law exempts banks and credit unions from reporting the data that if they make fewer than 500 loans per year, they can make a lot of big loans. This is 85% of all banks and credit unions can just make less loans and not report them. So, yeah, which is a little bit disturbing there, just to say the least. So here is